I have always refrained from making any videos that talk about doom and gloom or disaster or Armageddon. There are way too many videos on YouTube that deal with this, and most of it's crap mixed within a little truth, but the idea that anyone could foresee with any accuracy when something like this might happen is just silly. However, there are a few dates out there that if a foreign power or someone wanted to have the most effect in making an attack like this, the upcoming inauguration would be that particular date. We have one line of succession in the morning, and we have an entirely different line of succession in the afternoon. There's a lot of dignitaries all gathered in one place, and given the massive amount of rhetoric that has been put out by the Russians and the Chinese, the idea that something like this might happen, I guess, isn't out of the realm of possibility. This video isn't going to be one that's meant to get people all worked up or get people all frightened. I am a giant hater, I guess would be the best term, of fear porn. I just can't stand it. It's one of the worst things out there on your YouTube. And if anybody doesn't know what I'm talking about with fear porn, it's all these videos out there that talk about the end of the world and strange planets coming into our solar system and reptilians attacking and governments having all sorts of nefarious plans going on behind the scenes. It's just silly. But I am going to make a video very shortly detailing the what's, the whys, the wherefores, and how this works. Now, the first thing that you're going to have to remember is that if something like this would happen in Washington, D.C. on Inauguration Day, it is very likely that the internet is not going to be something that's easily availed of. They are probably going to put into place, if it's still up and working after the attack, a whole bunch of security measures that will restrict your ability to get to different places. So having a pencil and paper or pen and paper plan or an idea of what you're going to do probably is a good idea, because cell towers being down or satellites being jammed with traffic, because it would be a worldwide event. So the idea of ease of communication would be a fantasy. So anyway, we're going to just talk about real quick. Decapitation strike. In the theory of nuclear warfare, decapitation strike is the first strike attack that aims to remove the command and control mechanisms of an opponent. Yeah, I think I'll just leave that there. Everybody pretty much knows what we're talking about. I think the first thing that people would want to know would be our U.S. presidential line of succession. I'm sure a lot of you probably are already aware of this, but I'm just going to go ahead and cover it. And like I said, to begin with, we would have two different lines. The Obama line in the morning, and depending on when the attack happened, we would have then a very temporary line and a very unfulfilled line of the Trump administration. I don't think a lot of the people that would be in the line would be even approved yet, but here are the people as we have it standing right now. Obviously Joe Biden, Paul Ryan, Orrin Hatch, Secretary of State, Treasury, Defense, Attorney General, Interior. You can look down this list, it's on Wiki. The only thing here that I really wanted to point out would be Secretary of the Homeland Security, Jay Johnson. It's feasible that he could end up being the president and also be the man in charge of the Department of Government that would be relegated to the recovery. So he would actually be fulfilling two roles. I don't know if he would reassign somebody to be the head of Homeland Security while he was doing presidential things, but that would be minutia at that point. We also have this thing called a designated survivor, and what this means is that somebody in the previous line that I just showed you is going to be away from and secured from the inauguration. Now, I have done all the homework I can to try to find out who this person is, and it's very clear to me that they're keeping that a secret. There's a list of past designated survivors that you can find, but the current one, it is very, very hard to say. And I have to imagine that more than likely they have a designated survivor for both administrations. Um, the one thing that would, of course, happen in an attack on Washington, D.C. during the inauguration of some kind, we're going to assume here nuclear, I think is, maybe a little bit, over the top, but I'd always rather make the error, too great than too little. The first thing that would happen would be FEMA would be put in charge almost immediately of operations. And I think it's very important to note your region, where you're at, and where your capital would be. If Washington, D.C., of course, were attacked, they are Region 3. Philadelphia would be their capital. 2 is New York. I kind of find that odd that New York would be the capital of 2, because that could be a target. I wonder who the backup capital would be. Boston, Atlanta. Denton, Texas is kind of interesting. I wonder why Denton, Texas is the capital of Region 6. Of all the cities in Texas, why? That might be something for somebody out there to do some homework on, who might be from that area. Kansas City for 7, Denver for 8, Oakland for 9, Seattle for 10. So that's how they would divide up the country if we were decapitated in Washington, D.C. The next thing I want to go to is, I saw this article and there was something in it. It's actually about, there's a TV program apparently called Designated Survivor that deals with this exact issue, with the entire government being destroyed in an attack. I've never seen it, so I don't know the details of it, but it says, under existing rules, particularly vulnerable during presidential inaugurations, the terms of the president and vice president constitutionally expire at noon on January 20th, but their cabinets remain in office until either a resignation is tendered or a successor is confirmed by the Senate, which usually doesn't happen for hours or even days after the inauguration. Which is interesting. That means we might have a hybrid line of succession, depending on who was still unresigned and who had been confirmed. So who the eventual leader might be is going to probably be a question for quite some time, and the government's ability to communicate it is going to be a problem for quite some time. I would have to imagine that situation, probably the most important person in your life is going to be either your local mayor, your governor. Each state is probably going to be able to deal with its own problems, and an operating federal government won't be number one on the priority list. I mean, it's going to be a priority for the federal government, but as far as the issues that people like you and I would have to deal with, this would be something for the localities in the states. Just a little background from my military training, and we'll get out of this video. If there is a radiation issue, I've done my homework. People talk about iodine and different things, but this works, folks. It really does. Sea salt, baking soda, and water. If you've got a tub, fill it up, soak in this stuff. You can drink Epsom salts with water. It's kind of a laxative, I'll warn you about that, but it's actually good for getting rid of impurities, radiation being one of them. Everybody is going to have their own issues to deal with. Everybody's going to have their own set of priorities, or whether you have children or whether you don't. I would just make sure that going up to Friday that you have full tanks of gas, lots of water in the house, and batteries, these kind of things, the normal things that you would have for like a hurricane or some impending natural disaster. But the biggest thing that you need to know is that your family is going to be your biggest asset. The people around you, and by family I mean your friends, your trust group, your support group. More than any other thing, guns, bullets, whatever, people. The people that you trust, the people that you care about, the people that are of like mind with you. Having those people around to maintain a sense of order, a sense of calm and civility, that is going to be the greatest asset that you'll have in times of crisis. And I think that could apply going forward, even if nothing would happen into the next 4 years, if this man would be inaugurated. Just make sure that you have a support group around, people you can talk to. It's not nearly going to be as bad as sometimes you can make it out to be when you're sitting at home alone with your thoughts. You can always let those take over and take you places that shouldn't be. So Happy Sunday to everyone. I really appreciate all the support on the channel. We are getting ready to cross the 300,000 view mark, which I think is amazing, given that the video only started in November. We're only 2.5 months in. We have a great group of people, polite, respectful, intelligent. I encourage everyone to go do their own homework and come here and contribute. I've said it again. I've said it before. I'll say it again. You folks are, most of you, a lot smarter, more intelligent than I am, and can bring things to this that would make it a blessing for everyone. So God bless everyone. Have a great week. Keep your eyes and ears open, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Like, share, subscribe. Click the little bell.